Oh man, the Scottish Warrior, Drew McIntyre on the show. But before we get to Drew, we gotta talk about Dave. If you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be super stressful when unexpected expenses just pop up. Well, now Dave can help you get out of a pinch when you really need it. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, or just catch up on bills. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. Best part about it, no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and you need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download Dave today by going to dave.com/CVV. That's dave.com/CVV. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. Yeah, I said it. Instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Future you will thank you. I've wanted to do this for so long. So Drew, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
No, thank you very much for having me. I feel like we've done this many times. I've spoke to a lot of people multiple times, but I guess I've just seen multiple interviews you've conducted. So yeah, let's do this thing right.
Well, this is our first. Yeah, I was just at WrestleMania a few months ago, and I can't believe we're already talking about WrestleMania tickets being on sale for next year.
It's wild. It's wild, but the machine never stops. WWE 52 weeks a year, no reruns, no off seasons, and it all peaks at WrestleMania. And even though we just finished WrestleMania up not too long ago, and I'm still in a high from it, the AT&T Stadium was unbelievable. The crowd were unbelievable. Managed to cut those top two ropes. Maybe it was only supposed to be one rope, but it could have been a disaster, and I could have cut no ropes. Everyone seems to think the ropes were like rigged. They were going to, split apart on command. They weren't. It was real ropes. It was a sword that was extremely sharp, and I had to hit it perfect. And thank God it worked out in the end. So next year, I'm looking to make a big, big moment when WrestleMania once again goes Hollywood.
I feel like when you walk around with that sword, like people must be terrified because that thing does seem like super sharp.
It is super sharp. I don't know if I could technically take it into battle if I was, living back in the old Scottish days. If I was side by side with William Wallace, it might, end up getting bent, as we saw one time where I swung it too hard, and it technically had a bend in it, but it is extremely sharp. It does do some damage, and I try to reiterate that whenever I can when fans are reaching out to slap hands with me, but they're not just reaching for my hand, they're reaching to touch the sword. And I'm like, did you see what happened at Mania? Did you see when I cut the rope with Sheamus? I want to show you this thing is sharp for real, and you're going to lose a finger.
So we're about the same age, so I'm so curious for you growing up. What was the WrestleMania match, the WrestleMania moment that you just loved?
It was countless. For me, like yourself, I was completely obsessed, watched everything I could get my hands on. And WrestleMania was such an important event every single year for my brother and I to stay awake till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning on a school night and be very tired at school the next day. It was always, a very big event for us. And some of the big memories as a kid for me, as a Bret Hart fan, oh my goodness, seems that Bret was on the losing side of a really big one. One of my earliest memories with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 12. One of my good friends at school was a Shawn guy. I was a Bret guy. The next day, he kind of rubbed it in about the result, and I might have beat him up at school because of it. And, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, an incredible match, one of the best matches of all time from a storytelling perspective, physicality perspective, and the double turn at the end, just unbelievable. I remember how much I loved the theatrics of WrestleMania 14 of Undertaker Kane, the first match, the build, Taker's entrance, just Kane's presentation and story overall, and just these two monsters going at it. And I could go on and on and on, but just off the top of my head, these are the three that just popped right in there.
Three pretty great ones. When people talk about WrestleMania moments, a lot of people go, man, WrestleMania 36, I wish Drew could have got his WrestleMania moment in front of the crowd. Do you feel like it was still a WrestleMania moment for you?
It was for sure. And people will remember the WrestleMania when the world stood still. Sadly, they're probably not going to be in a hurry to watch it back on the network and Peacock. But they're going to remember it. And that was such a scary time for the world. We had a lot of questions, we had a lot of fear going on, and WWE pushed ahead and gave the world that escape. And as upset and angry as I was initially, once I understood the gravity of the situation, I was very proud of WWE for putting on WrestleMania over 2 days for the first time ever. But more specifically, myself being in the main event, my first ever title match, this feel-good story going in. And I knew, me winning the title could make a lot of people happy, which it did. The social media interaction was up 60% from the year prior. There was just unbelievable viewing numbers for that. And it did take people's mind off what was going on in the world during that time. So I am very proud of it. At the same time, I was still looking for that big moment with the live audience, winning that title, because I'm a 2-time WWE champion, but I've not held the title in front of live fans yet, which I don't think anyone can claim. And as proud as I am of that, I won that title in front of fans.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a Clash of the Castle. Like maybe that's the big moment, like in front of fans. How proud are you that WWE is going back to the UK for the first big show in front of a huge crowd for the first time in 30 years?
This is when I say, like, I dreamt of moments when I was a kid. I dreamt of main eventing, WrestleMania. I dreamt of all these big moments that seemed attainable, that in my mind were attainable. Nobody else believed I could do it, coming from Scotland to WWE. But the idea of main eventing a UK stadium show the level of SummerSlam 92 didn't seem possible because they didn't run UK stadium shows. This is something I actively talked about, actively pursued, actively asked questions about for years, especially when I became WWE champion. And I had a lot more media going on at the time, especially high profile media. And I mentioned it all the freaking time. And thankfully, I guess there was some talks going on within, behind closed doors that I didn't know about. And it got to the point, I'd been talking about it so much, somebody had to say to me, "Do you know something you shouldn't know?" I was like, "Nope, I know nothing. I've just got certain goals that I've been pushing for a while. So you do what you're doing, I'm doing what I'm doing. Hopefully it'll work out." And thankfully, it worked out. I got involved in the process eventually, and it's happening now. And I'm so proud of it. And I'd love to take the whole credit for it, but it's the unsung heroes behind closed doors that work at WWE that make these things happen. Just the problem would have been if it did happen and nobody cared and nobody bought tickets. I kind of need a public scapegoat, and the fans would go, "McIntyre, you were wrong, you idiot." And the blame would fall here. So I'm very glad that it worked out, and even happier, proud, don't have the word, that I'm main eventing and fighting for the title in that first UK stadium show in 30 years.
If this goes well, do you think we might see WrestleMania in the UK some point soon?
Like, yeah, I can't see why not. I'm not going to talk about numbers that I've heard at the moment until they're official, but we've seen the numbers that have been released. Just the demand for the tickets broke records initially. And right now we're on course for some big, big numbers from a business perspective. But for people watching, for the fan tuning in to watch the Clash at the Castle, when you see the live audience and just how loud and rowdy and crazy they are with the chants that we've seen in the past when Raw and SmackDown, I've came from the UK. Like, I know a lot of people are going to go, "Why on earth don't we do WrestleMania there?" Imagine how crazy it's going to be, having not just those wild UK fans, but people come from all across the world and joining in the atmosphere and the passion and the insanity of the UK fans.
When you talk to your friends and your family back home now, do they go, "Drew, what happened? You sound like you have an American accent now, or you've lost your accent"?
Do you hear an American accent?
Of course I hear. Yeah. I mean, you sound Scottish, but
yes. Like everyone else on earth. Yeah, everyone else on earth. Like, I'm sure you've talked to people with thicker Scottish accents in the past, or heard what Scotland tend to say when I talk.
I've been there. I was like, pardon me?
Exactly. Every single person in Scotland has the thickest accent on planet Earth, even though we only talk English. And people have said to me multiple times, especially when I first moved here, "You speak really good English." I was, "I freaking hope so. It's the only language I talk." But we have these extremely thick accents. Like, we mumble, most of us. We use a lot of slang. And I had to really work on it, to the point where Vince McMahon told me when I was 24, "We're going to have to get you elocution lessons, Drew," after I gave him this passionate speech about my ideas and what I want to do for the company. And that was the retort. "I think we're going to have to get you elocution lessons." So I worked on it. I, spent a lot of time learning to slow down, especially the time away from WWE, how to make myself understood in these kind of interviews, on the microphone, get comfortable in those situations, because I know how important it is. And when I finally honed it, when I finally felt good about myself, and the whole world was saying that, "Man, Drew's a very confident talker. He's really improved that area of his game," I had Scotland to bring me back down to earth and say, why are you talking like that? Why are you not talking like this now? That's why I understand us. I'm so proud to be from Scotland, but nobody understands us. So I have to soften the accent, make it a little less harsh.
I feel like the Drew McIntyre that's sitting in front of me right now is like a very different man than the one who left WWE in 2014. What was the like first step in the reinvention process to get to where you're at now?
Oh, there's a lot of steps. Thankfully, I have a book available, Chosen Destiny, that you can check out. It's got all the details. But step one, as my wife reminded me, wasn't just, I'm going to take over the wrestling world outside the WWE and redefine what it means to be an independent wrestler. I'd like to say that, and I did say that, but my wife reminded me, no, you were full of anxiety, fear, uncertainty. You've been in 3MB for a long time, so you hadn't had any significant matches or significant interviews. I really never had significant interviews because I always read from the script line by line, never put myself into it. So I was very nervous, but I did believe this is what I was meant to do. I did believe I had something to give. I did believe I could go out there and make a name for myself and really reinvent Drew McIntyre, Drew Galloway. And right away, I knew I had to go back to Scotland to get my mission statement out to Insane Championship Wrestling, ICW, where all my friends were that I started with. But business was on the upswing in the UK. They were doing amazing. They had their biggest show of the year at 1,500 people there. It was 3 weeks after I got released. And I told the promoter, Mark Dallas, everyone's contacting me. You haven't contacted me. Why is that? So I thought my friend would be upset he was fired, so I had to give him a moment before I start trying to book him in a wrestling show. That's not real life, because I appreciate that, but I want to be on the show in 3 weeks, but I want to keep it a secret. So, he sorted out the travel. We kept it a secret between about 3 people. I showed up in Scotland, and a famous clip online, if you've not seen it, check out Drew Galloway Returns to ICW. I spoke for 20 full minutes, unscripted, just said everything I was feeling at the time. And it got such an insane response afterwards. It felt so good to get it out. It felt so good to be myself. I said some bold comments in there. I'm going to show you the real Drew Galloway. I'm going to take over this world as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to put ICW on the map. This little company is going to help take over the world. A lot of people watched it and went, oh my God, look at this guy. This is incredible. He's going to do such big things, including Mick Foley, who went on Stone Cold's podcast and talked about me, texted Triple H and said, you have to keep an eye on Drew. Then there was the other people who had watched me in 3MB and said, this 3MB guy's out of his mind, saying all this stuff. He's not going to do anything. But that was phase one. And then I literally looked myself in the mirror and said, it was a tough few years, these last few years in WWE, professionally, but especially personally. In the end, it's on you for not, getting the help you needed personally, but also working as hard as you could professionally. You'd have been happy to be the water boy at one point. You forgot, why you came here. You lost perspective. Never let that happen again. And I worked as hard as I could, left no stone unturned. My saying now is be accountable to one person and one person only: social media. Don't listen to freaking social media ever. Everyone out there, please don't listen to it. The person in the mirror, that's the only person you answer to. And that is the only person I did answer to, aside, the wife, because I still had areas I had to improve upon. The partying wasn't gone yet. I was still burning the candle at both ends, but I took every booking I could. I got as good as I could, was lucky enough that people believed in me, gave me a platform to ply my craft, to learn to become a leader, to get confident in the microphone, confident in the ring, and built myself into a place where I was ready. The guy who was faking it in the beginning till he made it, everyone else believed in, finally believed in himself, finally became what Vince had saw all those years ago, Triple H saw all those years ago, and I finally became, the real Drew that I could be. Once, I'm talking about professionally, once I broke my neck that one time, you might have heard about, I had to sit at home for 8 weeks for the first time in my life. I had to come to Jesus talk with the wife, and we talked about the partying and going out and how I'm giving it my all, but I'm not giving it my all. And I finally said to her, you know what, you're right. As successful as I am right now, my brother referred to me as a verb, to do it, Drew, leave WWE and become more successful, which was very cool. I still had a ways to go. I looked in the mirror, looked at my body and said, you can step in the ring with Brock Lesnar right now, the biggest attraction at the time. And people would look at that image and go, he can beat Brock. You got to work on the body. You got to cut out the negative stuff. So I cut out the partying that I was doing all the time. Within a few months of changing my diet up, my training up, my body changed dramatically. And then I saw myself in the mirror and went, that's the guy who's ready to take on the world. I figured it would be Japan, but I took a phone call with Triple H. And after that phone call, I knew it was time to go back to WWE.
And look at you now. That's an amazing story, by the way. As we wrap this up.
Sometimes I talk.
I wish we had an hour. That'd be amazing. We were all very surprised to see Karrion Kross on SmackDown. How surprised were you to see him?
I was very surprised to see him. I didn't know till the very last second if we can say a little more here than we say in general, but let's just say as somebody who's worked hard for an opportunity, deserves that opportunity and is getting the biggest opportunity of his career. Fortunately for him, it's not going to come at Drew McIntyre's expense.
Drew, such a pleasure to talk with you. I'm so glad we could make this happen, and congratulations on everything.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad this is phase one, but we'll get one of the long form interviews eventually, and you'll be like, man, this was my first ever 4-hour interview. When I let Drew go, he just goes and goes and goes. This guy never
it'll be like WrestleMania. It'll be a 2-day event.
It'll have to be a 2-day event, but like no break in between. It'll be like the former WrestleMania of 7 hours, but 14 hours in total.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. And I will see you all at WrestleMania at SoFi. That's what we're talking about today. Tickets are on sale now.